We're all set then for the final-ish practice session ahead of the Daytona 500 for 2025. Welcome to Thursday. And we're all getting set then as well for what's going to be a very interesting session. Well, another hour ahead of us, and the drivers will know exactly how their cars are set up as well. We've got IndyCar Radio alongside as well. We're ready to go. I've just said IndyCar Radio, and I meant to say it's NASCAR Radio. Oh, that's a great start. Hello, everybody. All set then for the Motor Racing Network and their starting coverage as well. Fox Sports will bring you through the next hour. Daytona has been a very interesting session as well. Interesting that they just had the Xfinity practice session. We got to see what the CW's graphics looks like for the first time, and they look very, very interesting indeed. So we are all set to go and all getting ready for this 1 hour session, 50 minutes on the clock, and then we will be go. Let's have a word, though, first of all, over with NASCAR Radio to give us all the latest news, views, and opinions as we get ready for Fox Sports to come on.
Storylines, they are aplenty, and we're so glad you're spending your Friday evening with us here on the Motor Racing Network. Let's go to the garage right now. Postman, paint the picture for us. What's going on down there as these cars are about 2 minutes away from taking to the high banks?
And with all of these storylines comes all kinds of scenarios with race cars the way they're parked down here. A number of the drivers who did not have problems, they're sitting in their cars pointed towards the exit of their garage bays, and they're just waiting for NASCAR officials to send them out on the racetrack. Some of those teams that are still working on their cars, well, they continue to do that and still just kind of fine-tuning. Drivers are climbing aboard and getting ready to go, and still other teams are not going to make it out for this practice session. Those cars are in their respective garage bays up on jack stands. So it's really a unique scene. You go from one garage bay that is just lockdown ready, one garage bay that is a full-blown hair-on-fire thrash, and another one that knew they couldn't make it today, and they're just patiently, quietly working on their cars, getting ready for tomorrow. It's a neat scene. It really is. When we do get out on the racetrack, though, I think most of the drivers, most of the teams are going to do some pairing up in various configurations to
Daytona, temp around 75 degrees, heavy cloud cover, but no rain. So we welcome you back to NASCAR Cup Series practice on FS1, presented by Toyota. Spotters on the roof at the ready, drivers in their cars, and there's the Harley J. Earl Trophy that everyone is hopeful of hoisting at the end of 500 miles, and that's what it's patterned after, the real Firebird 1 General Motors concept car designed by Chief Stylist Harley J. Earl, great friend of Phil France Sr. Let's check with our crew chief, Larry McReynolds.
Well, Mike, we've been here for 2 days, and over these last 2 days, these drivers and teams, they've been multitasking. They've been trying to get ready to qualify on Wednesday night, get ready for the dual race. Now it's a reset. We're no longer under the impound, and it's all about getting your race car ready for 200 laps, 500 miles on Sunday. Whether you're in one of those backup cars, a car that's been repaired, it's all about getting these cars to drive good, because I think about William Byron. I think about the two drivers, Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon from Richard Childress Racing. Their cars did not drive very good last night. That will be the big agenda in these two practices. Regan Smith.
Well, Larry, Mac talking about cars driving good. Some teams just want cars out there to drive. And last night after the dual races, it looked more like a race car graveyard in the garage area than it did a Daytona 500 garage area. Many tore up race cars. In fact, 8 cars going to backup cars, as Mike Joy mentioned off the top. A number of other cars with significant damage. But the work that has been done up and down through here today has been absolutely amazing. Less than 24 hours after those races completed, it looks like every car just about is almost brand new again. A couple teams still finishing off work, but what these crew guys have done has been impressive down here in the garage area. Josh?
Well, Regan, speaking of finishing work for Jimmy Johnson and that 84 team that qualified their way into the Daytona 500 on speed, well, they had a fuel pickup issue. They took everything apart, didn't find anything wrong. They still changed it out. Now they're going to go out right now on low fuel to see if they can see if there's any other issues out there right now. So they're going to be monitoring that while they're out there on the track, Mike.
Oh, that's got to be maddening to have an issue that's going to affect your performance, or in this case, how long you can stay out on the racetrack and not be able to find the cause.
Well, those are the worst problems that you can have, are the problems that you can't analyze and find and understand. It's really easy when the tire goes flat or you crash the car, you know you got to fix it. Whatever it is, those are actually easier to find than the gremlins that you can't diagnose.
But as we know, in a 500-mile race at Daytona, fuel mileage is going to be the issue, right? If you can't run that tank empty every time, you're in bad trouble.
Kyle Busch pulling up. Now that outside line is kind of lined up. So what is the protocol here? There's cars lined up and stopped in the outside line and the inside lane. Some cars just busting right up the middle, going out on track right away.
I think they're just looking for their groups, right? Looking for, you see the organization, you heard me talk about that. There's 2311 cars together. Denny, their owner. This is a car that was tore up, right? Backup car, and he's out by himself. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and when you get on those different agendas, I think that the single car runs will come from the cars that had a backup car or something that wasn't right. But I think that when you see these other groups like 2311 right here in the Toyotas, they have a specific plan. They probably had an order that they're going to go out on the racetrack on. You see, Jimmy Johnson, he's working on his fuel issue and seeing if the car will run with nothing in it. So lots of different agendas, but last night we saw what all the problems are. They worked overnight to solve them and put themselves in a position today to understand if that solving is correct.
So this just in from our assistant stat man today, Keelan Harvick. Only 5 cars went to a backup for last year's 500, but one of them ended up in victory lane, William Byron's.
So you're saying, Keelan, it doesn't matter. Backup or not, you can win this baby. I guess.
Well, that's the way it went last year.
That's the way it can go every time. We've heard all these drivers. I want to say this. Saw the strength in numbers. I said it 1,000 times last night. Those Penske cars, in particular, the 2 and the 22, Logano and Cindric, they work together well. Look for that again all day Sunday. That was a winning combination for Cindric.
Larry, what are these Fords up to right here?
Yeah, you see 7 Ford drivers lined up, and this was a plan that was made earlier today. Their plan is to go out there and run in a draft. They'd like to run about 20 to 25 laps. Think about that. That's about a half of a run on fuel. But I also see some Chevrolet teams that's latched on, like William Byron in the 24. He was another driver last night that had a fuel issue like Jimmy Johnson. They're going to make a long run in the draft, and then they're going to come in like Jimmy Johnson, drop the fuel down to about 6 gallons and see if the problem rears its head like it did last night. They made a lot of changes on that 24 car as far as fuel pressure and fuel things.
I want to add another layer to that as well. Stay on William Byron. He was really complaining about the handling of his race car, Kevin. He said it was pretty light on its feet. It was all over the place. Those were some of the adjustments that they made, and it makes sense that he's right where he's at right now. I want to be in that draft, up to speed, so I can get a good feel for what my car's doing.
And I doubt those Fords wanted those Chevrolets with them. You know, that's the hard part when you leave pit road. Sometimes you go out there with 7 or 8 cars to see exactly what the speed of your group is and understand what the lap time is and the fuel burn and everything that goes with that organized line. Well, now they've got more cars than what they anticipated and guys that are really not in their plan.
Hey, sorry, that's what practice is for. If I'm worried about the handling of my race car, and particularly in the draft up to speed, I want to get out there in the biggest group as I can, and that's what you see those 2 Hendrick cars doing.
So we have an 11-car draft, a 4-car draft, and a 5-car draft spread out at different places around the racetrack. Here are the Toyotas working together. Christopher Bell out in front of pole sitter Chase Briscoe. Eric Jones, who was first to the finish line last night in that second duel.
Yeah,
Don Hunter Nemechek.
When you see this smaller group like that, you see the trailing car in this particular group as we ride on board with Eric Jones. But the trailing car in this group, that is the last car in line, is the one that sometimes that's the guy that has the problem. I remember a couple years ago down here when I was here, you see the spacing in between those cars in the back. You would try to get yourself as far back as possible so you understand how far you can be back and still catch the group.
Without losing it, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't have a car that's capable of doing that.
Look at that hood come apart. Not only is it flap up, but you see the hood separating from the vents.
All right, start rolling up.
Martin Truex, in this case, is that last car in line, driving the 56. As an open car in the 500. Kyle Busch has the fastest lap of practice so far, 47.07, 192 miles an hour.
came down here with just 2 backup cars, not lettered, not decaled, not fitted for drivers, and so they've had to work extensively to get these cars ready for Daniel Suarez and SVG. And then I don't believe we'll see Justin Haley out on the racetrack as well as his Spire Motorsports team continues to work. Saw Rodney Childers earlier today, and they had a whole bunch of race car parts all over strewn in the garage area, trying to put the pieces back together again.
On the racetrack, we continue to watch this 11-car draft led by Joey Logano. Alex, I'll ask you the question: would you rather be Joey Logano leading this draft, or would you rather be towards the back of it, seeing if you could get sucked up into a draft? Because more times than not, that's what you're going to need Sunday in the 500.
I would be one that would try to figure out from the back to the front, how is my car going to respond? How will it suck up to the back bumper of the competition in front of me? Once I get that taken care of, I wouldn't mind trying to fall back and maybe get in the front of a draft. See what your car is going to do. Get an idea how your car punches the hole through the air and creates horsepower. Are you a better pusher? Are you a better leader of a line? Those are the types of things that some of these drivers are trying to figure out right now as we continue to click off laps here, and they're getting faster out there.
Austin Dillon has just gone to the top of the leaderboard. He's in a pretty potent draft. 193.678 miles an hour. That's 46.469 seconds. That is a draft. Zane Smith is second. Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, Joey Logano rounding out the top 5. Kyle Busch was quickest there for a moment, but that is no longer the case, as now this draft that we continue to talk about continues to put in the fastest time, and that draft is starting to grow one by one by one.
You mentioned Austin Dillon and Zane Smith. They're 1-2 on the leaderboard as far as speeds go. They're the last 2 cars in this big pack of traffic right now as they begin to move out of line and shuffle things up just a bit. But it looked like they were able to drag the brake and give up 4 or 5 cars.
William Byron's gone to the top of the chart. That Chevrolet draft working the best right now. 46.17, 194.9 miles an hour. This Toyota group running about 191.
And you see Christopher Bell pull up the racetrack right there. He's spent his time at the front. He understands what his car needs to do, so now he'll fall to the back of this line and do all the same things that the guy in the back of the line was doing to understand if he thinks his problem is better, or he's just
right there.
Or he's just participating in the group to have enough cars out there. Maybe he doesn't have anything that he's analyzing, but you need enough cars on the racetrack to make your car better.
And when you're with your organization, Kevin, you and I were participated in this. Sometimes there's a caution. Might be to that degree.
Caution light on here. Debris in turn 3 is the call. Here's your Toyota driver profile on Christopher Bell. 2 straight top 3 finishes in the Daytona 500 and 4 straight playoff appearances. Just missed making the championship for this year. 23 top 10 finishes. All right, they'll clean up debris and we'll put cars back on track and continue Friday rush hour here in Daytona.
What their pit box will be. Get the driver a good sight reference and understand where that pit box is going to be. Others may take it straight onto the garage, but once you pull into your pit box, you may be able to pull the car right back out at the exit and wait for the track to go green again.
Bubba Wallace will opt to grid himself at pit out. He is against the ball field, and he will be the first one to go back out onto the racetrack. Steve Post, what's the update there for Bubba?
Bubba Wallace very happy with his race car. Of course, he won his dual race last night, and he was real happy with the handling of the race car, and they just wanted to see what it would do getting at the back of a pack. He was toward the front of a field, and he wants to get to the back of the pack. So what they did is they came down, and they were going to bring him down, and he actually mocked his pit box. He's in pit box number 20, and he simulated it, pit road speed all the way down, and a launch up off from pit road. The caution came out, so he couldn't roll back out on the speedway, and so he's out there waiting. Freddie Kraft, his spotter, just said, I'm going to try to get you with a group of Toyotas and see if we can get you in different positions, especially toward the back of it, to see if we can learn what your car does. I'm not sure how long they're going to practice this thing. I think Bubba's pretty happy with his race car, and if they can just see how this car is toward the back of a pack and maybe in the middle just a little bit, I think Bubba Wallace is going to be pretty content, because he's got a good race car, as was evident last night by winning that dual 150-mile race here at Daytona.
And the debris has been picked up. The track has gone back under the green flag. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
The Motor Racing Network brings you more than just race broadcasts. If you're looking for weekly in-depth motorsports coverage,
high banks, and gear up for spring break in the fast lane. 3 races, 3 days, one unforgettable weekend in racing paradise. NASCAR weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Get your tickets now at homesteadmiamispeedway.com.
The track is reopened for practice. There's a 10-car draft coming off turn number 4. You're watching Bubba Wallace, who won here last night, got his first dual win, and spent the morning signing autographs and saying, do you want fries with that? Out across the street here on Speedway Boulevard.
Notice the fries in Victory Lane. You see the ketchup on the fries up here? I dig it. Good looking helmet.
Well, they took that trophy out of Victory Lane and brought it over to the boss. 2311 co-owner Michael Jordan.
Hit him out! Hey man, I ain't gonna give you.
Stories that I can tell you.
Good job, kid. That's a good start. I took that last year. Good job, dog.
That's got to feel good.
Yeah, well, when you're used to winning as much as Michael Jordan, you expect trophies to
bring him back.
So Bubba was like, all right, here, I got you. I got you this year. We got off to a good start.
What a compound he has back there.
Looking back from Ryan Preece at teammate Chris Buescher.
Yeah, we all believe that Ryan Preece has a fast car. We know Chris Buescher was in position to win that race off of he's lucky that he still has a race car. They put themselves in a position to where they had to block and kind of staggered those blocks last night and had that wreck that we had in the second duel, but he could have very easily been turned around while he was throwing that last block.
I believe these RFK cars are going to be fast and a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I still believe, and I think you do as well, listening to the Fords talk, they still handle well, they still push well, they still have an upper hand as far as the total package, it seems here.
Now, Larry, their teammate Brad Keselowski had to go to a backup car, but the circumstances are a little different than what we usually see people go into backup cars for.
Yeah, Mike, and let me stress, if you have damage like from the dual race, you can't just make the decision on your own. We're going to backup car. NASCAR has to approve going to backup car, and that would be if you have structure damage, if you have roll cage damage. But what was going on with the 6 car after that wreck last night? There's conicals on the frame, and what a conical is, it's a locating device for NASCAR's inspection process, and they were completely rubbed off. That means they could not take their car through the inspection process, the optical scanning station. For that reason, they had to go to a backup car.
4-car Chevrolet draft here, and they are at the top of the speed chart, led by William Byron at 194.9. Maybe 5 cars right here if Alex Bowman tucks in.
Yeah, we see Ricky Stenhouse at the front of that pack, and the 9 car of Chase Elliott able to tuck right up underneath the back bumper of that car. And when you see those hood flaps start to go up, that's when, as a driver, you know you're doing a pretty good job and your spacing is close enough and you're right next to the bumper or on the back bumper of the car in front of you, because that air starts coming out from underneath the hood. As you get closer, you'll see the hood flaps start to flutter on that 9 car if he gets close enough.
I think Stenhouse, watching him right there, didn't see much of him, you know, last night in the duels. That's somebody that you always expect to see up front when the time's right at the Daytona 500 with his big win right in the past. And I think he's out there looking for some speed in that car, and I bet they find it, and you watch. And maybe that's that orange car will be back up front.
Maybe that's why the 9 can push him so good, because his car's a little off on speed. And sometimes sometimes there you see
it pull
that
right up to it,
flap.
kind of at will by itself as well.
Sometimes it's better to have a car that's a little bit slower that you can actually catch and push and stay attached to the bumper. But
as long as you can keep them behind you, right?
Yeah.
Put them in a spot where they have no choice but to push you. You can see he's able to push him well right on the bumper and pretty much stay attached to it.
Yeah, and these are going to be really fast laps, because if we pan out and far enough and be able to look at the group in front of them, you'll see on the back straightaway there's a group in front of these guys as they come off of turn 2. You'll see that little bit of half a straightaway right there. That's going to make that second line faster back there.
And it's also going to see this change up into here. Watch this.
Yeah, you've got the 9 really pushing the 47, and
they're catching that group quick.
Yeah, they're getting a tow off of that group in front of them. Even though they're that far away, they're able to get a draft off that group in front of them.
I'm very impressed by how much he can stay attached, and I say Chase Elliott's attached to that 47 car. If they can do that on Sunday, that is potentially a dangerous thing. Those guys can be very dangerous to the competition.
Yeah, and as you see those cars go side by side off the exit of turn 2, that'll even help that second group. Yeah, and as you see the mile per hour up on top of the screen that we had, you can just see this difference in speed. Even though it's less cars, it's got more draft.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't go to the top of the board this time. They've got them connected. You see Austin Dillon and Kyle Larson behind them.
Yeah, we know those cars are already fast at the top of the board, but I mean, as you see the 9 pull out of line right there, that'll slow that lap down a little bit as they cross the start finish line.
Mostly forward to that group ahead.
Yeah.
Last lap 47.56. That's about half a second off the fastest lap here. 47.08 for Stenhouse on that last lap. About 0.8 slower than his best lap today.
You heard me talk about those Penske cars earlier in the show, and I feel like if as close as the field is, and I'm going to say this again, said it last night, I think this year, manufacturer-wise, is as close as I've ever seen. There's really not one that's
it would have been a long ways.
31 to go in Friday afternoon practice for the Cup Series. Now, are the Toyota drivers all done? We'll find out when we come back.
This is Alex Palou, a conquistador of concrete from the start.
In anticipation of a busy pit lane during Daytona 500 race conditions.
Watching on the racetrack right now, Austin Cindric, who won the second dual race at Daytona last night, who will also sit on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500. If you're a fan of Austin Cindric, in this practice session, he is 11th on the leaderboard, 193.187 miles an hour. Had a chance to swing by the hauler today. He was up front with Travis Geisler, who heads the competition department. Crew chief Brian Wilson had a chance to visit with Brian. That team is stoked, not just because of that win, but what is some momentum that's coming into the season that started back at the Clash?
Yeah, because one of their weaknesses was their short track program with their driver Austin Cindric, and to be able to run really well, make the main event in the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray, and then continue to advance up the leaderboard, that team thought that was a race that did them worlds of good as far as psyche goes, as far as the momentum of the team goes, and the morale of the team. To know that they could start the season with an exhibition non-points race on a tight little short track and get better as the race goes on, they feel really good about their program right now. Obviously, they got speed when it comes to drafting tracks.
Little less than 30 minutes remain in this practice session, watching Austin work his way around the racetrack. Everybody trying to set the top lap, which is right now in control of William Byron, 194.923 miles per hour. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
The Motor Racing Network brings you more than just race broadcasts. If you're looking for weekly in-depth motorsports coverage, check out MRN's lineup of weekly programs. NASCAR Coast to Coast with Kyle Rickey and Chris Wilner. Wing Nation with Steve Post, Aaron Evernham and Ashley Stremming. MRN's Crew Call with Steve Post and championship-winning crew chief Todd Gordon. And the long-running MRN flagship program, NASCAR Live, hosted by Mike Bagley. Find these shows and more on MRN.com, YouTube, and podcast platforms.
NASCAR's only street race returns to the street.
Upsets here and there, but it's a who's who of NASCAR racing. And when you look at the history and everything that goes with the Daytona 500 and what that means to our sport, there's just nothing that matches it, in anything else that we do on the schedule.
Join Kevin and his crew and the biggest names in sports and entertainment on Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by Echo Park Automotive. New episode Tuesdays and Thursdays. There it is. That is the prize that everybody has their eye on here in Daytona every February. Here's Josh.
Well, down here with Bubba Wallace, ran some laps. He's out of the car now. Before I even ask about your car, I just want to ask about that moment of handing the trophy to old MJ last night. What was that like?
Well, it was cool. He was up on the backstretch watching. He was pumped for us. We had a good time. So glad to have him here. I think his whole crew, his whole entourage shows up today, so we'll have a good time tonight. Enjoy the truck race. But yeah, we're done practicing. Didn't get all the things that I wanted to get checked off the list, but I feel like we had a really, really strong McDonald's Toyota Camry, so I'm going to enjoy these nerds that a young fan just gave me and go hang out with my wife and son. And I'm done for the weekend until Sunday.
There you go, Bubba. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, you can tell him the practice isn't over, Josh. He can go ahead and get back in if he has more on his list.
Now, the pit assignments have been done for Sunday. Pole sitter Chase Briscoe will take the first pit stall. And you see them practicing coming in and exiting the pit stalls. Last night, we had a lot of fuel-only stops. And let's start out with old school. Okay, here's Chris Buescher. Get the can in, a couple of seconds, away he's gone. Did he get 3 seconds worth of fuel? I'm not sure. But there away he goes. So teams have found different ways to enhance the timed fuel-only stop. Someone in the front of the car to signal the driver out, perhaps, like that. And maybe a couple of drivers. And here, Joe Gibbs Racing has added technology to the timed fuel pit stop. Regan?
Mike, it's really pretty impressive how quick this garage can innovate and find new ways to actually get quicker with what's going on these pit stops. Pit stops, of course, very critical with the fuel mileage that's going on these races at Daytona right now. And every thousandth of a second, much like every thousandth of an inch on these race cars, every thousandth of a second in the pits matters right now. Joe Gibbs Racing, of course, you saw the iPads there. The iPad comes out on the crew guy's hand. He will tap that iPad. It'll start the time. When that timer runs out, the light goes green. Instead of the crew chief having to reach up and grab the top of his radio to say go, 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 which could be a tenth, it could be a half of a second, whatever it is. Instead of that, now they can save that time, and when they get back to the racetrack, it may save 2 or 3 positions. I love when it's new innovation down here.
Yeah, and you know, it saves time, but the other thing that it does is it puts it in the driver's hand, which is somewhat questionable, which that's the way this racing is.
I might leave a little early.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Clint was driving, we wouldn't use the iPad. But I think that it allows the crew chief to look down pit road to be ready to call that car out of the box. It's the driver's responsibility to go on green, but it also allows the crew chief to be ready to call that car out of the box, so it's safe, efficient, and everything that you can do from efficiency, the more details you can stack, and that's just another one that I'm sure everybody else will catch on to now.
Well, but look at this car right here, Buescher. And I remember this last night. If you go back to that, he had a little bit of trouble. That caution kind of saved them. They didn't get all the fuel in it that they wanted to or expected to. The caution saved them, enabled them to get to the end. But it has to have the guy get it plugged in, because when that clock starts, it's the seconds that they need, right?
And the other thing that happens too, we showed a couple of those fueling videos. There was a couple guys in front of the fueler. One is to probably stop to tell the fueler to unplug, because that's when the front of the car will be out of the pit box and you can't really have that. That would be a penalty. But the other thing is, in case he falls or something, they're there too. But really, that's for that guy to make sure that he can stop the fuel guy, because the car is going to be out of the pit box area.
Yeah, I like that backup plan the most. We've seen those, the fuel tanks get out of the pit box and come in for a penalty, and that guy could be there to keep that from happening.
All right, Larry Mack, we got a group of Fords out here on the racetrack trying to accomplish what?
Well, other than that one caution, they've been out there running ever since this track opened for practice. They've now completed 26 laps, which is exactly what they told me they were going to do, a long run. This is more than a half a fuel run. They're learning what their car does as it burns that fuel off. But the other thing they've been doing, I've been watching closely, they've been letting different ones lead the pack. That's information you can use on Sunday. I know these cars are very close to one another, but maybe just the way the body's put on one car versus another, it may lead the pack faster than another car, even of the same manufacturer.
"23 minutes left to go in this practice session. There will be another one tomorrow to get everybody tuned up. And hey, there's Elio Castroneva's car, repaired after last night.
In NASCAR Cup Series racing are absolutely amazing. You guys described Christopher Bell coming down pit road, pitting deep in a box, pitting shallow in a box, out on the wall or out on the grass and everything else. I just checked in with Adam Stevens, crew chief on there, and I said, what are you guys doing out on pit road? He says, we are, and that's Christopher going back on the racetrack because they're going to do a little bit more of it. We are studying the fuel mileage on the launch out of pit road. In other words, how to get as quick a launch out of the pit box and use as little fuel. I have never heard that detail, although the level of detail in the Cup Series garage never shocks me, but that is a level of detail that they're working on, and I'm assuming that Christopher is probably doing that on behalf of all of the Joe Gibbs racing teams, and they'll take all those numbers and say, when you're exiting the pit box, do this, because we might save a drop or two of fuel. And as we've talked about, Jim Catafamo just talked about a little bit ago as well, fuel mileage will be a part of this, and every ounce saved is an ounce you can put in the bank for later in the day.
So why is that so imperative to save the fuel all the time like that, even on just leaving a pit box and doing it efficiently? The reason being is because when your car is stopped on pit road for service, the competition is still moving. And when you're running 194 miles per hour, you're giving up nearly one full football field length in competition per second while you're sitting on the pit lane. So if you save fuel and don't burn as much out of the tank over the rear wheels of the race car, that means you don't have to put as much fuel in the car on a pit stop, meaning you're not going to sit on pit lane longer. So the idea is save fuel while you're racing, save fuel coming to pit lane, and now clearly, and learning this, save fuel exiting your pit box.
So new places, familiar faces, and memories in the making. Welcome to a whole new season of NASCAR.
Sunday, the Daytona 500 on Fox, and a big change announced today. We want you tuned in Sunday at 11:30 a.m. for our pre-race show, and then opening ceremonies 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, because the race is going to start an hour earlier than originally announced due to the threat of rain in the late afternoon. So
I don't like
your calendar and set your DVR.
We're going to outrun it. We're going to outrun that weather and get this Daytona 500 in. It's going to be a good one.
That is the hope. Yep.
No hope. I'm guaranteeing it.
Let me know if you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's 30 laps, guys.
That was Joey Logano's radio.
Can you hear him say he's good? I mean, we don't know their plan. We're just throwing ideas of things that we've run through before, and you know, they've definitely went through the whole cycle of front to back and back to front, run it see who's fastest in the front, see who's fastest in second, because that second place car has a big responsibility. Who's the best pusher to be able to push that leader and keep that speed up of that group and keep that leader shoved as far forward as possible?
Yeah, and actually that's where I was going with that before that caution came out, is trying to figure out, you know, we used to go out there all the time ourselves, Kevin, figure out who pulls the line faster than the next car. One of those cars will.
Oh, by the way, it's raining.
Oh, man.
We've had this heavy overcast all day. And I mean really thick, heavy overcast. And apparently some of those are rain clouds. So a bit of a sprinkle here puts us under caution. And yeah, don't forget that tune-in time on Sunday. Everything is happening an hour earlier because of Mother Nature.
Yeah, and you see Chris Buescher right there talking to Brad Keselowski and using his hands. We all use our hands, but they're talking through the scenarios that they just went through in this practice session of things that they wanted to work on, whether they were better or worse, what worked for me. And this is a constant evolution of learning, and that learning comes through conversation with your teammate and things that you see and watching everything that is going on. So it's definitely a process to keep getting smarter.
Now, only 30 of the 41 starters have been out on the track in practice. Keselowski is one of those who did not take a lap.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. That's what I was going to say. Brad didn't get out there, actually, so he was very interested in what he felt for a race car. Chris Buescher. Regan?
Well, Clint, a moment ago as we went to break, we showed a rolling race car that was Helio Castroneves' car. Of course, that thing was destroyed last night in multiple impacts. Take a look at this, something we don't get to see very often at the racetrack. This was actually the front end that came off of his car from last night. They took the entire thing off this morning, engine and all completely inside of it, unbolted it. They went and got the other front clip that they could put on here. Wow. This is this morning right here. That car, there was no parts and pieces on it. It was completely stripped apart. They bolted up the new front end onto the race car, stuck an engine in that thing, as well as the back bumpers and all the parts and pieces you see there. And right now, this car is actually down, going through technical inspections, getting the early technical inspections done on it right now. Absolutely impressive what these guys have done overnight. Of course, Trackhouse tore up 3 of their 4 race cars last night, and with 2 of the other teams needing a backup, they decided to repair this one. That's why they were into this situation, but these guys have been working all day nonstop.
Hats off to those guys. It is hard to put into words how much work goes into those cars, and putting a front clip on that thing. I mean, the car looks like they literally built a race car right here before our very eyes. There's the wreck that caused it.
Chandler Smith up and into the wall, and Castroneves got caught up in that, and then he got down to the apron, and the right rear wanted to steer itself and did right up and into the wall.
And Kevin, obviously that was a huge hit that it took to the right front right there, but you tell me all the time, and with this new car and as low as it is, tell me about this one right here.
Yeah, when you hit the apron right here and that car pounds the ground right there, that's a really difficult impact for the driver, and the compression with your spine and everything that comes through the seat. Those are big hits, and I think Elio learned a lot last night about
not doing that again.
Slowing that car down, because that second hit probably could have definitely been avoided. But this isn't easy.
Those guys have worked their tails off. Congratulations.
Heavy overcast and a little bit of rain on Friday afternoon here in
Vapor trails coming off that baby. That is awesome.
Network airtime, and then we're back at it Sunday, a new airtime, because matters have been pulled back by 1 hour. We are now on the air at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're basically moving up the start of the 500 to prepare for what possibly could be some inclement weather.
Could very well be, but that remains to be seen. But I'm proud of the sport for being proactive on that one for sure. It is heavy overcast here at the World Center of Racing. The track does have very sophisticated meteorological equipment here on site. We're looking at the official radar area, which is in the booth right next to us. There's nothing on it. There's no color whatsoever on the radar next to us. This is just one of those things that's just a little bit of mist apparently out there, because there are no track drying apparatus on the track at the moment.
Well, it's better to be safe than sorry. We have found ourselves in positions before, and NASCAR took a second look at it and has decided to err on that side of caution, not put the teams or the drivers in a precarious position. So just put the red flag out and just let matters settle in. But it is is very heavily overcast. It started out earlier today, had some sunshine, but we have seen some clouds roll in over the Daytona Beach area to the point to where while we can still see the hotel's beach side, they're getting hazier and hazier. So obviously the ceiling has come down here in Daytona.
Yeah, it has. As one of the Delta Airlines Boeing 737-900s just touched down the runway here. If you've never been here to the Daytona International Speedway, it is such an unusual and iconic layout with the high banks and the grand stadium that this place is. But the Daytona Beach International Airport, right behind the backstretch, basically the runway, I would say runs perfectly parallel, but it runs somewhat adjacent to the back straightaway. So when you're landing here at Daytona, you just look out the window and you see this grand speed palace.
Well, you mentioned Daytona International Speedway and its sprawling capacity. You know, it used to be that we used to race on the beach. And it's amazing the vision that Bill France Sr. had way back in the 50s to have the vision to create something like this that has survived the test of time. It has survived a lot over the years to become what it is today and boast the best stock car race in the world and the biggest stock car race in the world, one that stock car drivers all across the globe desire to capture as one of the trophies that they won in their trophy case.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks that come to Daytona and always ask the question, okay, where did they race? What part of the beach did they race on? And then go southbound on the paved road. Where is that? Well, you can actually go see that. The north turn has black and white paint on it. You see exactly where that is. There's an iconic restaurant there called the North Turn, and then you go south down A1A towards Ponce Inlet, then you'll get to the south part, the south turn down there. It is also painted black and white.
Welcome back to Daytona 500 practice, brought to you by Toyota, the Goodyear blimps here for the truck race tonight. 100 years of the Goodyear blimp. Glad to have them with us. That's how you know you're at a big sporting event.
It's not the only thing here for the truck race. You're here for the truck race, aren't you?
I am here for the truck race, yeah. I will be calling the truck race right after this.
I'm watching.
Well, let's go back to last night and Austin Cindric's victory. Eric Jones, great disappointment. And here is why. On the final lap coming off turn number 4, cars get all piled up and the caution light comes on. Prior to the start-finish line, there's the light. Austin Cindric ahead of Eric Jones, even though Jones beat him to the line. The moment of caution decides the winner.
And it was so close to the start-finish line. Heartbreaker for Eric Jones. Eric Jones did a great job. That all transpired. He set that up off of turn 2, Kevin, and it rolled right off into the exit of turn 4 and put him in a really good position to win that race. I was impressed with his move.
You want to be the last car to pull out of the line to be at the front of the line, and he squeezed himself up right in front of that outside lane at the perfect time to put himself in position to have a chance to win. Got back to the start-finish line first, but when the caution came out, Austin Cindric wound up winning the race.
But, I mean, he almost stole that show. Goes right back to those Penske cars that I talked about. I mean, I didn't think anybody had anything for them because I knew Logano was not going to get off that bumper of his teammate Cindric, and he didn't until the exit of turn 4. Then he actually got underneath Logano, opened that gap up, and that drag race was on.
All right, let's go to the garage and check with Josh.
Well, down here with Brad Keselowski going to the backup car, so you didn't get a chance to practice yet, but I saw the combo with Chris Buescher. What were you picking up from what he was able to learn out there today?
Yeah, I just want to see how the cars are driving. And, you know, every year I feel like you come down here and the cars in the duel still have a little bit of their qualifying trim in them, Josh, and they don't drive as great. And you're like, all right, we'll see. When we take some of that out, is it better? Does it still have good speed? And just kind of trying to understand it. Both of our RFK cars look like they're driving really good. They drove good yesterday, too, but unfortunately I don't have the same one. But we were going to try to get out here today, but we got some more work to do. It doesn't look like we're going to get out there in time, but I was ready. I'm all dressed. I'm going to go back to the bus.
Well, there you go. Appreciate your time as always, Brad. Regan?
Well, Josh, all the drivers getting out of the race cars, having conversations. Kyle Larson and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. down here talking about their cars. We saw you guys out there in a draft together. First off, backup car for you. Did you learn what you needed to about this car in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a productive practice just because we were off on speed. So I think now, you know, we can go and like fluff on it and try and get some speed out of it. So yeah, balance-wise, I was a little bit tight. It was hard for me to hang on to the draft, you know, where I was at in line. So it's frustrating to like be the last car and not being able to hang on, but at the same point, like, it shows that we're off on speed, so we can go to work on it and try and, like I said, fluff on it and get a little bit better. So once you get in the big pack and stuff, I don't think it necessarily matters a whole lot, but yeah, for practice, it's a struggle. It's a struggle when you're that slow.
Ricky, we saw you out there leading the pack some. We know how to win these Daytona 500s, did it a couple years ago. Is your car getting tuned into where you need it to be good on Sunday as well?
I definitely felt better about our Sunday Camaro there in that practice session than we did in the duel last night. The cautions fell exactly wrong last night. We never got to be able to flip that track position, but yeah, went down and talked to Chase and was kind of talking to Kyle here about just that drafting session that we had, and Chase and I were talking about things that maybe we could do different if we were in that situation again, but thought he pushed us really well, and hopefully we can get a Camaro in victory lane come Sunday, and all of us work really well together.
How important, guys, are these practice sessions and the duels as well in terms of building relationships as the week goes on? By the time you get to Sunday, knowing which cars you work best with, obviously you're both in Camaros, but knowing which cars you work best with, who's better out front, who's better maybe, pushing the pack and different things like that.
I mean, for me, like, Ricky's my buddy, so it doesn't matter. Like, even when he was a different manufacturer, we'd always seem to find each other out there. But I do think it, helps being out there, at least, trying to just, like you said, learn some different things about how pushes work, how you position yourself, how hard you make a run at somebody. So I unfortunately didn't get to do any of that there, but out of my windshield, it looked like Chase was definitely pushing him really well. Which Chase, I feel like for the Chevy guys is probably the best pusher. At least when he's been behind me, I feel the most comfortable. So, but yeah, it is good to get that opportunity to kind of work together a little bit. And like he said, when it comes down to the end of the race, you're really starting to push like that. So you can learn a lot.
Good to have friends out here, isn't it?
It's great to have friends, and like Kyle said, I mean, you want to get yourself around other people and just build confidence in other people around you that. Chase knows that he can push me pretty hard now when it comes down to it, and if we need to go to the front, we can. But everybody knows how these speedway races are. You can have all these plans, you can practice drafting, you can draft all race with people. When it comes down to it, you can look around you and none of your friends are left. So I've been in that situation a few times where you look around and all your bow tie friends are gone, or vice versa, and you're surrounded by another manufacturer and kind of go out on an island, do it yourself. But I felt we gained a lot of confidence there in that practice session.
I love it. Gets to the end of this race. All bets are off, gloves are off. Everything has to happen spur of the moment, Mike.
Thanks, Regan. 6.5 minutes left. Those drivers are still hopeful of getting back on track. Well, that one's not. Martin Truex headed back for the garage. So's Carson Hocevar.
Is kind of freaking me out, and I bailed, and 2 laps later they all crashed, so that was a good call, I guess. And then we hit a huge piece of debris and ended up destroying the whole front of the car anyway, so I guess I could have been up there in the mix. But really fast pro Toyota, and just see if we can keep it up right now on Sunday. We obviously have the best starting position, but we want the best finishing position, so see if we can execute on Sunday.
How was this practice session? Did you learn some things that you can apply to Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, a little bit. The biggest thing for me was just trying to, get all my pit road stuff right. Being in pit stall 1, so, ran 4 or 5 different practice runs of just trying to run pit road speed and, get into my box, take off, and just those are all the little things that are going to decide if you win the Daytona 500 or not. So was trying to just do my best at all those things and really dial that in for Sunday, and felt like I learned some stuff there. So just try to put it all in the piggy bank and remember it for Sunday.
Wish you well.
Yeah, thank you.
Chase Briscoe, all the little things, guy. Boy, that's an understatement, guys, is trying to win the Daytona 500. All the little things are what you're looking for.
And a little lady luck to smile on you as well. And maybe Chase can hoist the Harley J. Earl Trophy. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
You crave power, but your ride is holding you back. Feeling the burn of mediocrity instead of the thrill of domination. E3's cutting-edge tech, the same spark that fuels NASCAR champions, also delivers maximum fuel efficiency, so you spend less time at the pump and more time on the track. This is championship performance. This is E3 Spark Plugs. Don't just dream of speed. Make it your reality. Power, speed, endurance. E3. What are you running?
The Motor Racing Network brings you more than just race broadcasts. If you're looking for weekly in-depth motorsports coverage, check out MRN's lineup of weekly programs. NASCAR Coast to Coast with Kyle Rickey. These shows and more on MRN.com, YouTube, and podcast platforms.
So while we wait to know...
Back here at the World Center of Racing again. Practice still on hold for the moment. There are still 5 race cars poised.
And it's just been made official that Cup practice is over. So Byron ends the session fastest. Due to the weather that's coming in, they want to maximise time for the truck race that's coming. So that's it then for the Cup practice here at Daytona. We'll be back for all the action for the final session tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.